Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Select Board here in Town Hall, Memorial Hall. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed by Westborough TV. If you are able, please rise and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you everyone for attending. There is going to be a short presentation given by our town manager on the proposal on warrant articles number 3 and 4 for this upcoming fall town meeting. There will be an answer then for questions and answers after that. We would ask, we are not really taking suggestions tonight for what should go into the building. This is really questions about the building itself and potentially what it could mean to the town. But, you know, we're going to do after this, if these proposals pass, we will do a full charrette and have folks come in and get everyone's opinion on this project to make sure it's incorporated if it passes at fall town meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Christy Williams, Town Manager. As you all know, up on the upcoming fall town meeting warrant, we have Articles 3 and 4, which are the proposal to purchase the, we call it the Boston Sports Club building, or 1500 Union, this building located within the Bay State Commons. To give some history on the community center and the community's desire for the community center, we wanted to show this, that going back to 2012, when the municipal building, the Forbes municipal building renovations were considered, the plan included the removal of the existing gym space within that building. So at the time, in order to compensate for the loss of that gym, we had talked about a recreation center, and this was the plans for that. So as you can see, it's really just a gym. There's a classroom and then office space and bathrooms for the recreation department. While the Forbes municipal building renovations did move forward, this part of the article did not move forward. However, the community did continue to talk about a community center, and in 2016, the Recreation Department and Commission commissioned this conceptual design of the Westborough State Hospital property. So as we considered the purchase of the Westborough State Hospital property, we considered what we would plan there. The Recreation Department has done some work to create some of these fields. However, the community center has not moved forward. The only piece that speaks to the community center is really this picture. So the plan at the time did not articulate what amenities would be within the building. It just called for a 26,000 square foot building. And so that's what was conceptualized as part of this plan. In 2018, the town engaged in creation of a strategic plan, and one of the priorities of the strategic plan was to design and build an intergenerational community center with activities for all ages. Moving forward to the 2021 master plan, that plan was developed through lots of public engagement as well. There are 2 goals within the master plan that really speak to the community center, as well as the location that we're proposing. So the open space and recreation goal number 3 talks about the interest in creating a community center with action items to investigate the feasibility of constructing a multi-generational center, expanding indoor and outdoor recreational facilities, and then also even investigating the potential for a municipal pool. And the public facilities goal number 3, we talked about again the exploration of creating a community center, and then also the need to expand the town's current senior center. The economic development goals within the master plan also speak to this. They talk about promoting the mixed-use development in and around Bay State Common, which is the location of the proposed facility, potential for incorporating more entertainment-driven uses within that facility, and making Bay State Commons more visible and welcoming and vibrant, and then also incorporating teen-friendly amenities. In 2023, we received the results of the senior needs assessment. So the senior needs assessment was mailed to all homes with someone living there that was 55 or older. It was also available online for anyone to take. And so through the survey results, as well as key informant interviews and focus groups, we received the results of the senior needs assessment. So in looking at the key informant surveys, those who participated identified the traffic patterns of the existing senior center being problematic, challenging, and potentially dangerous. Also talked about the desire for the space to have more active and physical offerings for the seniors, which we would have at this new location. In focus groups, they identified key deterrents to participating in the Westborough Community or Senior Center. They cited the condition of the building, that the senior center is largely inaccessible. There was a concern again for driver safety, and then also the physical environment being a deterrent of using the senior center. Also, there was a commonality among those folks in focus groups who had a sense of feeling undervalued in the community. So feeling that there's reluctance on the part of the town to allocate resources and offer supports to seniors. One of the key findings was the need for updating of the physical space in the senior center to meet the needs of the seniors. So that included engaging, so the recommendations included potential for community center, engaging the community for input, which is what we'll talk more about later, and then also the continued to strengthen and collaborate between departments. So this is the opportunity that's before us. This is Article 3 on the warrant. So Article 3 is specifically to authorize the Select Board to acquire this property and to also appropriate the funding for this property. So we've negotiated for this building a purchase price of $8.8 million, which is approximately $139 per square foot. In talking to architects, we were advised that the cost of a new building would be about $800 per square foot. That's actually was legitimized if you look at the new Upton Community Center. The new Upton Community Center includes the senior center and also the library. And that building was about 15,000 square feet and was $12 million. So the estimated tax impact on this building, if we were to move forward with borrowing for the $8.8 million, would be an average of $84 to the average single family over the life of the borrow. And in the highest year, which would be the first year, it would cost $113 to the average single family. The proposed purchase includes the building, which is about 64,000 square feet. The first floor is 31,000 square feet, second floor 32,500. It also includes some of the parking area. So you can see here outlined in red the parking that would be included, and it's about 2.58 acres. The first floor is really an open, actually, let me go back here. The first floor is really an open floor plan. It was previously occupied by Steinmart. It's currently occupied by Spirit Halloween. And that's really, again, just very open. You can see here that the space is really fully available for fit up. Here you can see the second floor, so that's currently occupied by the Boston Sports Club. There are several rooms within this space. So in addition, you can see the basketball court, there's a pool, there's maybe a multi-purpose room, you would call it, to the left there. There's also a small cycling studio. So there's just multiple opportunities to have multiple programs going on at the same time because there are separate rooms, which is a concern we have currently with the senior center. I'm just gonna go back here. We do have a video or a virtual tour that Westborough TV put together, so I'm just going to play that. And it's not So that video did give you an idea of what it looks like. The lower level obviously is a little more difficult because it was recorded last night when Spirit Halloween was there. But as I showed before, we do have pictures of the lower level, and so when Spirit Halloween leaves, this is really what the space does look like. The unfinished area in the back is a loading dock area that's actually behind this space on the first floor. And then I think the rest of what you saw was Boston Sports Club. One of the things that we want to make a point about is that the exercise equipment that's currently in the building is not part of this purchase. It's not part. What Boston Sports Club is not a party to the negotiation. We've been negotiating with the owner of the building. Currently, the intent is that we would receive the building room clean. So looking at the proposed plan for if we were to purchase the building, it would be to relocate the recreation department offices to the second floor of the building. So you saw that there's multiple areas where we could have offices. We could just move the recreation department out of town hall and into that building, and also move a lot of storage. They have a lot of storage in the basement of town hall. And then we would eventually relocate the senior center to the first floor of that building. As we mentioned, it's really a blank slate right now, and so we would need to do that fit up, which is that public engagement process that we mentioned in the beginning, where we would really be looking to the community to understand exactly what we were looking to fit up in that space, understanding that the senior center would be relocated to that space. The recreation department and the senior center have talked about potential uses for that building and how they might enhance their programming. So here's just some suggestions about what might happen there. The recreation department doesn't currently have a lot of access to the schools over vacations, holidays, right after school. That's because they're doing their own programming. And so the recreation department would have that ability to do special events or parent and me classes or different things during the day, and also additional things at night. Senior center, they would be able to do more specialty activities. So their thoughts are that there would be rooms where they could run programs in parallel. So currently there's really 2 rooms that the senior center can program at a time. Obviously going from 8,600 square feet, which is the current size of the senior center, to the 31,000 square feet would give them some ability to really create additional programs, and then also have the opportunity for additional community space, as however that concept was conceptualized through that public engagement process. Here's some other potential programming opportunities. So youth programs and senior programs, but also community programs. So some of the things we want to highlight is that the Youth and Family Services could certainly hold programming there. The library could hold programs there. Veterans events. One of the things we're really excited about is the potential to hold elections there. Currently, all of our election equipment is in different storage spaces within Town Hall, and so we're excited about the idea of keeping all the election equipment in the building where we're holding the elections, not impacting the school day to hold these elections. And thinking about the pool, there's potential for swim lessons, water aerobic classes, birthday parties, all sorts of different programming that we don't currently have. One of the things that the rec director has talked about, and that you're probably all aware of, is our difficulty getting lifeguards for Lake Chauncey. And so the question is, how are we going to get lifeguards for the pool? So there are third parties that actually offer those kinds of services, and actually Boston Sports Club currently does contract with an entity that does provide all of the lifeguarding. They work with a vendor to do all of the testing and things that are required of a public pool, and they would actually be able to help run all of these programs and also even do birthday parties. And the intent is that would be funded through program fees if we were to contract with a third party. We would anticipate community center having expanded program hours, meaning that we would be open later than town hall. So, and as our recreation director has done some work in looking at other community centers and other communities, this is a proposed schedule, certainly part of that public engagement process to understand what the hours would need to be, but just really trying to make the point that we would have expanded hours that would go into the evening and also be open on the weekend. looking at the costs associated with the purchase, we've sort of put the cost into different buckets, so I'm going to walk through those. Article 3, as I mentioned, is the property purchase. So that's the purchase of the building and the purchase of the area around it that I had outlined. That has been negotiated at $8.8 million, or that $139 per square foot. The funding source is proposed as a borrow. And so that would be that $84 on average to the average single family over the life of the borrow. And then $113 in the highest year. So this is based on a 5% interest rate. That's conservative. We're not sure what we would get. We would have to go to borrow, but we feel that's a conservative estimate. The second article is Article 4. So Article 4 would fund public engagement, design, due diligence, and actually also some initial operating costs. So what does that mean? So for the estimated public engagement and schematic design, we've received a quote of $85,000 to hold some community visioning workshops and do some community outreach, meet with stakeholders, do some additional analysis of the existing building, develop a conceptual design, and then really be able to create a preliminary cost for fit up so that we could go to a future town meeting to ask for money for construction. We also would be we're asking in Article 4 for some funding to pay for maintenance and utilities through the end of the fiscal year. We anticipate closing on the property late winter, early spring, and so we would need some funding in order to pay for those utilities. And then estimated due diligence, so we're currently working on that, but the due diligence includes phase 1 environmental assessment. It includes looking at all of the systems within the building, so HVAC, the pool, any concerns about anything within the building, just making sure that we're fully aware, just like when you buy a house, of any concerns that we might have before we purchase the property. So as a reminder, the authorization in Article 3 is to authorize the board to purchase the property. If some of this due diligence comes back and it's concerning, they can choose not to purchase the property. So this article would be needed to really to get us through the process that we've identified, and that's proposed as a free cash article. In FY25, we anticipate some additional budget costs or carrying costs for the building. So we've estimated maintenance and utilities based on the Forbes Municipal Building. That building is about 56,000 square feet, so about 15% smaller than the proposed community center. It does have that 24-hour department in it, so when we think about the pool, potentially maybe needing additional electricity, we think about the fact that we have people occupying that building 24/7. So we took what we budgeted in FY24 for the Forbes Municipal Building, and we increased that by 15%. So that's for maintenance and utilities. Additionally, we would have the common area maintenance fees. So we would enter into a reciprocal agreement with the owner that would allow us to share parking, but also they would do maintenance of the lot. They would do landscaping, different things for sort of the outside of the building. That is a cost that we would not incur in this fiscal year because as part of the purchase agreement, we would not be subject to those costs for a period of 6 months so that we wouldn't have to go back to the community and ask for money for this fiscal year. But it would need to go into the FY25 budget as well as going forward. There's some estimated additional personnel costs. So that includes a community center manager in the recreation department. That person would really be responsible for coordinating use of the centers between the two departments, also working with the community as they use the center. Job responsibilities obviously might vary depending on what the fit-up ends up looking like. A custodian, we would want an additional custodian, which would be employed through the DPW department, because obviously there's a significant increase in square footage that we would be responsible for. And then an increase in hours for the program and volunteer coordinator in the senior center from 25 to 40, understanding that there would be, again, the ability to program a lot more, and so wanting that person to have a full-time position. So the total request that we'd anticipate based on these estimates is the $521 or $22,000 you see up there, and then the funding source would be the operating budget. So in addition to that $113 that I mentioned that you would see in FY25 to pay for the building, you would also see an additional approximately $67 to pay those operating costs. So in the first year, we anticipate the tax impact to the average single family to be about $180 understanding that that 113 would reduce as we go over the life of the borrow. When we think about program costs, we anticipate covering program costs with program fees. That's our current model in the recreation department. We have the recreation revolving account. The only thing that is funded through the operating budget for the recreation department are the full-time positions, and everything else is paid for through program fees, so that revolving account. So anticipating that we would still be charging program fees for many of our programs, still having the opportunity to offer some free events like the recreation department currently does. In the senior center, they do not have a revolving account, but they do have people pay directly to their contracts, so they do charge program fees. Senior center has a little bit, has a budget for some of their expenses currently, but really thinking that they would, or anticipating that their program fees would be covering their program costs with a similar model to the recreation department. And then there would be a future town meeting article, and that would be that building fit up. So once we got through the community engagement process, we would be coming back to town meeting asking for authorization to move forward with that building fit up, depending on whatever the conceptual design ends up being based on the community engagement. So we anticipate to be able to cover those costs through available funds. Obviously, that is fully dependent on the final design. So if we know that we need to add a commercial kitchen for the senior center, we probably will need to look at the bathroom facilities. There's talk of, we would maybe want to add some windows in the lower level. But then there's other things that, we need to hear from the community. Do you want a cafe, a game room, a music room? These are all just ideas that might be used within that space. And we've identified some potential funding sources for that fit up. If we start discussing an additional floor or multiple elevators, all of those things would really obviously very much increase the cost and would require us to relook at our ability to fund it through available funds. But if we're just thinking about creating walls and some of these other amenities, we think that we would be able to fund that through available funds. The proposed timeline up here, so October 10th, the select board will have a meeting. They'll execute the purchase and sale agreement. The purchase and sale agreement has many contingencies in it. So one of them is that town meeting has to approve the acquisition, and town meeting also needs to approve the funding source. There's also, as I mentioned earlier, all the contingencies related to mutually satisfactory inspections, indemnity agreements, things like that. So once that is executed by the select board, we'll add that to the community center page on our website, and folks can take a look at that. On October 16th, we have the town meeting vote. So that's these two articles would be before you in order to move forward, and then we anticipate being able to move into the community center or close on the property in the spring of 2024. So this is the public information session, so we're really happy to answer your questions. We do have an FAQ that was developed on the 26th. We have copies of that we'll pass around. Jen, do you mind passing this around? It's also available on our website. We have additional questions that I received that are not on there, so we'll probably do an update tomorrow. So if folks want to look back at that, we'll highlight which questions are new so that you can focus on those if you're able to look through these. But as was mentioned earlier, the purpose of this is not really to take suggestions for what we might use the space for. We're not really recording for that. We're going to have a consultant come in and help with that and help move that towards the conceptualization. So if you tell us tonight what you want there, that won't be recorded in terms of working towards that final concept. And then happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Christy, thank you very much. If folks want to approach the mic, we just ask that if you have questions, you speak clear. You state your name and address, and you speak clearly into the mic, so those folks watching on Westborough TV or one of the apps can hear you. But please feel free to come forward. Yes.
Lucille Kylo, 15 Gilmore Farm Road. I'm one of those people that gets up in the morning and goes to the gym first. And Sometimes it's 6 o'clock, sometimes it's at 7 o'clock. But listening to this, I didn't get the feeling that that gym was going to be a gym. And I have to ask why. I like the idea of a community center. I've been familiar with them, especially down in Florida. There are community centers, but they take into account the times that the kids are in school and the times that they're not. So if you had a gym, there are kids that we find on school vacation that come up to that gym. Parents are paying for it. We're paying gym fees for that as well. And I'm really kind of disappointed that you're not taking into account that you've got a really nice gym up there right now. You've got a basketball court, you've got the pool for many other things, and you have a place where people of all ages can go up and work out and keep themselves healthy, if that's part of the plan. And I don't see that in this, and it's just disappointing. Okay.
We're here for answers.
Yeah. So I just want to respond. So in terms of the amenities like the basketball court and the pool, we anticipate that being available. In terms of the exercise equipment, as I mentioned, that's not part of the purchase. If we were to find that that's something that the community wanted when we were talking about the build out, I guess I focused a lot of the build out being on that first floor. We would also want to enhance that second floor because there is, as you saw, a very large space where all that equipment is. So I think that that's all open for discussion. But you're correct that I don't think we anticipate having the similar membership model that Boston Sports Club has. I do also want to emphasize that Boston Sports Club, as we understand it, was planning to leave. So we came in, we had that opportunity because there were no proposed tenants. So I don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
I guess I would just add, I think, appreciate the, sorry, I can't see there. Appreciate the idea and the sharing, and we'll continue to hear this from the community, I think, as this process goes forward. I don't think that there's a reason why we couldn't do a gym there. I think it just is what's going to come out of the community information session. So that's how I'm looking at this. I think what you're seeing from the presentation is, here's the footprints and here's what exists. The pool exists, the gym exists. Some of the breakout room spaces exist on the second floor. Obviously, the first floor is completely open. So there's endless amounts of creativity that can happen, if you will, on the first floor, limited obviously from a cost and resource perspective. The second floor has some more boundaries, if you will, because of what's already there. But that doesn't mean that there can't be, once it's broom swept, that there can't be a gym. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I would just also add that there are already multiple gyms within the town. I don't think we necessarily want to compete with those facilities. I think we want to try and offer something to the community that is different from that, because they can get that experience now at Westborough Swim and Tennis, Planet Fitness, so there's definitely multiple gym locations already. But if that's what comes out of the community engagement, then maybe so be it.
Yeah, I would just add, and Jen probably could speak up from the rec department. During the rec department meetings, there's been discussion there, and I think initial programming for really the community, used by the seniors during school hours, but really utilizing those facilities that already exist. So the rooms for exercise, the court, I'll call it basketball court, but it's really a multi-use court. And if folks remember, we had the Forbes gym. We actually used that gym for pickleball. I think that's been discussed in the rec that could be used immediately for also indoor pickleball over the winter, even though I know that people shovel and play outdoor pickleball on our courts all winter long when they can. So that is intended, and it's been talked about on the rec side, but I do agree with the rest of the board that broader use and discussion will come out of that in community engagement. But I do think that there will be immediate uses of recreational activities, as we heard especially from our senior needs assessment, that's what seniors were looking for in town, and that they weren't receiving to their satisfaction or complete satisfaction today from the senior center.
Yes, please come forward. And then after this, we'll take the individual in the back.
Thank you.
Bill Thomason, 23 Mountain View Drive. Some of the questions I may have are comments. The space upstairs where the basketball court, swimming pool, things like that. Notice there were some things on the board saying, activities, Special Olympics, things like that. That pool didn't quite look that large for those types of activities, not to mention, where are you going to have your spectators? There's no seating or anything like that. Same thing for basketball events or anything like that. So, some of those things come to mind, as well as insurance and upkeep on an upstairs pool and structure and things like that. I think the cost is going to be a little more than you expect down the road, especially.
Thank you. We want to talk-
So Jen can probably speak to the uses. I can say that we know that insuring the building, that there was not, our insurance company did not have a specific concern with the pool. The cost of insuring that additional building could be $5,000 to $10,000. So it's not, I know that concern has come up a few times, so we did just get that information. So it's not, the pool is actually covered under a different statute that does not cause it to be exorbitant in terms of liability.
Hi, I'm Jen Kirkland, Recreation Director. So just to your comment about space, yeah, I know the gym doesn't have a ton of sideline space. It seems to be a common theme. Armstrong fails. No one wants to build enough sideline space for spectators, but we make it work. The basketball programs I envision in there right now would be a lot of kind of adult pickup style play where there's not a ton of spectators. I think we could even do the younger grades, first, second grade, where it's a little bit on a smaller scale, and parents, we make it work now in like I said, some of the school gyms where parents are just kind of standing around the sidelines. And to your comment about the pool, same things. We do run a Special Olympics swimming program now with another vendor in town, and we're only given half of one lane of a pool. So already very limited space. So this, we'd have the entire pool to use to be able to service more kids. I think that while it might look like it's small in some places, like I said, I think there's just a lot of opportunity for our department to be able to program it during the day. There's a lot of things that we could try to offer for seniors and adults that we just don't have the ability to now because we don't have the space. We're not allowed into the schools until 6 o'clock because the schools have their own after-school programs and activities going, and having our stuff in there would conflict. So again, like Christy had mentioned, there's just a lot of opportunity for us to do more of the programming that, and offer services to the town that the town wants, that we're just not able to do right now without our own space.
Sean, sorry. One other thing on the basketball court, and I don't know if we can show in the picture, but if folks looked at it, it's not a regulation court. So in terms of basketball, if you look, the three-point line kind of comes to half court. So it's a smaller court. So I think that's where, as Jen talked about, for younger grades or for pickup, it would work.
It was in the video. I
Oh.
just don't have I can pull up a different picture.
Okay, that's fine. But anyways, it's not a regulation, so it's not like there'd be like what I'd call intense activities with lots of fans there, because you couldn't really have an official game there. But it is a good spot for things. I mean, Forbes Gym, while it was official, it also, if people remember that, if you went in for a layup, you ended up hitting the wall when you finished because there was no space behind the basket. So you made it work. So it is something that's an amenity that could be used. As I said, I think the way that the rec department or rec commission in their, again, preliminary talks is that it would be a multi-use court space for many things beyond just basketball.
Tom Caprioli, 9 Crown Ridge Road. I did a little research on this proposal. I went to the building, walked around it, went inside, walked from wall to wall, corner to corner. Those photos that you were shown, that little video there, it's actually an accurate representation. Did you notice there's nobody there? That's true. There's nobody there. In commercial terms, this building is a loser. okay? Nobody wants to be there, nobody is there. Now, when I buy a car, I don't go to the dealership and price the vehicle as opposed to what it would cost me to build it myself, because I'm not in that business. What you're doing is negotiating the purchase of a piece of real estate. It's affected by, probably this is an argument, right? And you don't want arguments, but let's help the public understand what the proposal is here. It's you negotiate based on whether this dealership can actually sell this car. And if they have a car that nobody wants to buy, it's been hanging around for 20 years, I'm going to get it for nothing. I'm going to walk away with it for free. That's me. I don't know what you do. I also like to know who's selling the car. Not some stooge, excuse me, I want to be disrespectful, but not some salesman. I talk to the owner of the place. I negotiate my transaction with the owner. I don't know if you read the deed, your information referenced it. I read the deed page to page. This property is owned by a billionaire real estate developer who lives in Florida. This is chump change, okay? Your proposed, oh, by the way, there's tons of parking there. If you really drove there and you go to the parking to the side, there's like, I don't know, 500 spaces. It's just amazing. But if you really understand the value we bring to that shopping center, we're actually going to be the anchor property in that shopping center. They should give us the place, literally. We're going to put that place, make it viable. I'm telling you straight out, I'm going to propose a $4 million purchase. And I think that's paying too much. It's actually assessed for $1.8 million right now, the building, and then the land costs something. So you're paying too much, way too much. Secondly, it's really clever the way you got the second article. Oh, this is operating costs. Well, you have, in order to use that property, and let's be straight about it, you have to renovate it. And you have to renovate it in the public sector, which is bidding and prevailing wage and all that. You're going to spend about $10 million to renovate it to the style and manner that you'd like it to become. That information should be out there. It's not that I'm saying it's too much or too little. I'm saying that's what you're going to pay. So it should be a total package cost. $4 million to pay for it and $10 million to renovate it. Are you going to renovate it? Of course you're going to renovate it, because once you own it, you're never going to sell it. Nobody wants it. It's yours forever. And also, did you include the snow? Who's going to plow the snow in the winter? Yeah, did you include all that, right? You're going to increase the staff of these two departments. Again, I'm not against that, but be the reality. I've also looked at the pool. I walked in, walked around. It's a 3-lane pool. It's nothing to brag about, believe it or not. I think my neighbor's got pools just as good as that. So it's an interesting proposal. I like the wish list, but I like to talk about money. And the money is really not, you really need some help about that. You know, you need some, like, the art of the deal, so that somebody isn't telling you what you got to pay. You're telling them what your offer is. Take it or leave it. It's the only offer on the table. You have to know that. It's the only offer on the table. You control the bidding. Don't let anybody tell you what to do when you own the discussion. Thank you.
I just want to comment on the costs related. So as we mentioned, I'm just going to scroll to the slides. So we did articulate all the costs included. Again, the second article on here is for the public engagement process, and then just operating costs for the rest of the fiscal year. Related to, additional need for employees in the Public Works Department, for that outside maintenance. That's part of that common area maintenance that I mentioned. So we would not need to add additional staff for that. That's covered in that common area maintenance, which is captured in this slide when we talk about what the operating budget and how that would increase.
And just for clarification, the custodian there in the reference to DPW is that a year or two ago, I forgot the time frame, all of the public works were facilities maintenance were transitioned under the custodian of the director of public works, right, Christy? So I don't know that the public is aware of that. They're thinking, DPW. So like the people that maintain our town buildings report in through Public Works, just for clarification.
A few other comments. If you go back and look at agendas of the select board, you'll see that there were many, many agenda items in executive session where indicating that we were negotiating. So you know, we don't just take a price and do it. There was a negotiation involved. You know, what's a building worth? It's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. It's also worth what someone's willing to sell for it. You know, sell it for. And you come to an agreement or you don't. We were able to come to an agreement. When we look at, you know, when I personally look at the cost of this building, I look at it, you know, the most recent concept around a multi-generational rec center was about, what, 26,000 square feet up at Lake Chauncey. I expect with, you know, even with build out, this will be, you know, more than twice the size at 1/3 of the cost of what was projected back when the strategic plan was developed. So it's relatively a good deal for the town. It also puts the facility in a place where it's walkable, easily walkable to 3 of our schools, walkable to 2 others, easily walkable to a large portion of our population, centrally located. We don't need to worry about people crossing Route 9 and getting to a less, you know, a more isolated spot in town. You won't have to drive there. So there's some advantages. Mr. Caprio was right. There's tons of parking, which is great. And we like it. As far as build-out costs, we're not putting a number out there because we haven't heard from the community what extent of the build-out we want. That'll be through the public engagement process. When we do, we'll have ideas. And then you can look at, say, here's what the public wants, and here's what's the cost, and here's how much the public's willing to pay to get however much of what they want. And we'll come to that decision. Do I think it's going to be $10 million? Nowhere near. So.
Excuse me, if you're discussing my comments, do I get to discuss your comments?
No.
Oh, no, so I make a statement,
It's
and you get to
question and answer.
devalue
You
it,
have
but I don't come
questions
back
and
and
we
defend
answer.
myself? He's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You want to meet privately, and I'll prove you're wrong to your face? You're wrong.
On what?
On your, who asked that question?
I did.
On his cost and his negotiation of the property. What is its value to the seller? You don't just go, what is its value to me? What is its value to the seller? Somebody doesn't, when you go buy a house, you don't say, what do you want? Oh, I'll give you whatever you want. You come back with a counter offer. Now, if you want to discuss it with me, I'll be more than happy to
Mr.
take the time.
Caprioli, thank you for your question.
Fine,
You
but
can be
don't
seated.
devalue
You
what I
can
have
be
to say,
seated.
and then don't give me
No,
and
he didn't
deny me
devalue
the
it, you
chance.
disagreed.
Yes, you
Excuse
did. You
me,
devalued it. It was an attempt to devalue what I had to say, and then to give me a chance to defend myself. If you want to argue this out, I'll do it in public, I'll do it in private, but you know what the fact of the matter is? I'll win because I'm right. I know how to negotiate real estate. Not that I'm in the business, but I know how to negotiate a sale. And I know who's selling this property. Do you know who's selling this property? What's the name of the gentleman selling this property?
So,
You don't know, right?
Yes.
no,
It
we
is.
do.
We do. That's what we negotiated with.
Yeah, we,
Who?
So,
Who? Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
No, they're just
He's one of the
they're
partners with his other partners. He was the partner that negotiated.
Look at the
with
deed,
us.
look who signed off on the sale of the property.
Mr.
Sir,
Cap-
this is not going anywhere. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, it is going somewhere. It's telling you that somebody wants to talk to me, they talk to me back and forth.
I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you.
I
Okay,
think-
well,
I-
we'll
I
set up a
think-
time.
Excuse me, I think Ian had a comment,
Yeah.
just for clarification.
For
to the-
for clarification, this has gone through the negotiation process. As Select Board Member Edinburgh said, he spoke up. There were 2 members of the Select Board that did that. I was one of them. Select Board Member Marshall was the other one, along with the town manager. This was a negotiation. Sorry, Mr. Caprioli, I may not be as expert as you, but I think we did the job that we did for the town. We negotiated to a price that was lower than what the seller wanted. And it is a negotiation. It is an art of a deal. You are well within your right to suggest whatever number you want or to defeat the article, but what I will say is I'd recommend, if you don't agree with 8.8 million, you would argue to defeat the article at town meeting, because the seller is not going to accept anything below the 8.8 million which has been negotiated.
Yep.
So the argument on my part for if you don't agree with that price, you think it's too high, that is all within your right to do. But recommending another number is not going to work here. It's not going to come to whatever number you decide. I would recommend that if you don't like the 8.8 million, that the argument should be to defeat the article at town meeting.
And I would also just say that it's really important, I think folks need to understand that the diligence that Ian and Shelby and our town manager went through to bring this before the rest of the board. We had many, many conversations about this. So don't think that we just took it as is. We saw a tremendous value in this property for many different reasons, from the anticipated increased revenue that might happen in those businesses in that area. So I think you have to recognize that this wasn't just a spur of the moment decision. We talked about this for a number of meetings, probably over at least I think 4 or 5 months of executive sessions before we brought this to the community. But we felt that it was really important that we brought it to the community. So just wanted to make sure that you're all aware that this was not just a fly by the seat of our pants.
May I?
Thank you, sir. Yes, please
Thank you.
go ahead.
Nelson Ball, 7 Adams Street, Westborough. I don't know how many pickleballers we have in this room, but if you might just ride down Lyman Street on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday morning from 8 to 11, we've got a seniors program there, and you'll see that there's probably 32 people playing. There might be another 10 or a dozen waiting. And I would say, cumulatively speaking, for the week, there's probably somewhere around 200 to 300 people using that facility. So I'm just so excited that we might be able to get 1 or 2 courts into this building for the seniors program, that we can continue this in the winter as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions? Please come forward.
Margaret Sofield, 23 Mountain View Drive. I would like to know, I know there's a sign-in sheet at the Rogers Senior Center, and I would like to know how many seniors actually use it weekly, because you must have a record they have to sign in. I think 8,600 square feet is plenty enough space for the seniors that I have seen there. 31,000 square feet is outrageous. I think that the seniors that have lived here, most of them can't even afford their own homes, and they can't pay their taxes, or they have to work to the age of 80 or 90 years old. So I think this is, I don't know what Westborough's thinking. I think that it's outrageous.
Thank you. Comments? I would say, just as one response, that I don't think it's our expectation that the entire first floor would become the senior center. It would be a component of that, and then there would be additional other recommendations that are considered for other groups in town or whatever that may be. So I wouldn't expect the senior center to become 31,000 square feet.
But how many people use the senior center?
So we can
We
get
can get
those
that
numbers
information.
and get those published.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, and just to hit on that, and this was some stuff that has come up from the Council on Aging Director, and we will get those numbers, but some of the issues that we have that came out in the senior center assessment is that because of the setup of the current senior center, not the space, but how it's set up, that there's limited activities that can go on simultaneously in that space, because it's really 2 rooms that can be programmed. It's one big room and one other. We do know that and we've heard it clearly, that there are a number of our seniors that travel to Northborough and use their facility. There are a number of our seniors that travel to Marlborough because they have more activities, more space, more programming that fit the needs. So those are, so we can look, we'll look and we'll provide the information. We do have those records, and we do have a number of folks that use our senior center, but just getting that number does not show the use or the needs of seniors, because as we know, some enjoy going to Northborough and having a cafe that they can use, for example. We've heard that loud and clear from seniors as well. So, but we will get you that information.
Sean, if I may?
Yes.
I'm actually just pulled up the budget documents that are available to everyone online underneath the town manager's section under budgets. And within that, there are detailed reports for each department. And so the estimated number for number of seniors using My Senior Center, which is the check-in program that you suggested, is 750 using it. Now, I think it's important to say, I can't say breakdown by month or what have you. I'm just literally looking at this. Let me just finish, please. Thanks. So the other thing is checking in is not mandatory. It's highly encouraged. So
There's a note on the door that says it's mandatory.
no, I understand, but there are also speed limits that people don't follow, with all due respect. So people, you're supposed to check in. When I go in, I'm not a senior, I check in as a guest, but it doesn't mean people are always doing it 100%. So I think that those numbers are, there's a swag plus or minus in those numbers. That's all I'm saying when you look at these. Currently, the senior center, in the estimated number of programs it was offering was 100 programs over the course of the year. And then, there's other data there. So, but I think our town manager has heard your question. We can get some updated numbers. I think it's a great question. But I think that the point being made that the layout of the senior center right now is not conducive to more programming. And we heard that multiple times in multiple different ways from the senior center. But your question is a great one, and we'll get those numbers to you.
Well, what I've seen is conducive. I mean, you have a huge room, people are
So-
playing different games in different corners, and you
So-
have exercise classes, and those are repeated, if you.
So in fairness, if you have a clarifying question through the chair, I would just ask that you come forward and speak in the mic.
I would like to know how much 750 is that for the year?
Okay, so we heard your question that you're interested in. We don't have those numbers. And just for those of you, using a phone or what have you, it is available that you can go out and at least see those numbers. And our town manager has noted that as a follow-up question that we can add to the FAQ. Okay? If you'd like a question, please come, just so everyone can hear.
As far as Westborough, using Northborough's facilities, Westborough takes care of this Southborough's Meals on Wheels and things like that. So, I mean, I would think that's just something that happens in between. People know people and they go to one area to another just so they can be with their friends or associates or old, neighbors or something like that. But,
Absolutely.
There's absolutely sort of reciprocal, if you will,
Yeah.
informal arrangements among council on agings. That's absolutely
Right.
true. And that would be true kind of if we had, whether it's our current senior center or it were to be an intergenerational center of senior center programming. So
yeah, I mean,
that
they
is true.
just bought a new pool table, so we have 2 pool tables.
Yep.
And now there's a pool league, but they only go from one center to the other center on the weekly basis. So it's not like every week that somebody's having a pool league.
So
It's
I guess
at
I would
different centers.
So I guess I would just encourage anyone here who might have the same questions or concerns also to be familiar with the senior center assessment, which was done. And
I took it.
thank you. Thank you for doing it. Where a lot of different input was provided as well. Thanks.
And I would just add to that we have to keep in mind, first of all, the seniors have made it very clear that they are looking for more services in town, not out of town. They don't want to travel out of town, although they certainly do and will. But also on top of that, the fact is that that building, we haven't yet to decide what's going to happen with any part of that building. And I, for one, am wondering if there's an opportunity for, one of those things that the pictures didn't show was that first floor actually has a 23-foot ceiling. So there's an opportunity to actually perhaps divide that space up into multiple levels and actually get more out of it. But it all depends on what the community feedback is through this process when and if we purchase the building. I'd also say just going down to the senior center on regular events, I hear quite often from the seniors that there's not enough space, that they, for the various different programming, and that, there's a lot of additional programming that they would like to see. So that's pretty consistently communicated to me.
But certainly there can be different opinions on it. Jody, did you? Yeah.
Jody Hensley, 39 Arch. I kind of came to say thank you for thank you for being opportunistic in a really good way. I've been around here for 30 years, and meeting the needs of seniors and the needs of recreation is something that's been on the agenda that entire time. I remember seeing plans, probably when my kids were little, of a new rec center over by where the senior center is now, where you could get, where we needed more court space for kids and we needed more programming space for seniors, and those numbers were too big, and that project never moved forward. I saw the programming for a senior center out with the out at the Pulte area. That was a $50 million building. That's something that we would not have to build if we take advantage of something that is downtown. There's also been consistent requests for something in town, central, to the rest of downtown, so that the rest of downtown can be enjoyed here. So I just wanted to say I think this is an opportunity that came up, and I commend you for doing all the due diligence you've done to make this make sense, and it certainly makes sense to me for what's been asked for the last 30 years, that we might actually have an opportunity to do in a very cost-effective way right now. I am concerned about clarity on who we're buying from, so I sense the unclarity here, and I think maybe what we have is the contract for deed, but I think we should probably have a clear answer for people on that by the time we go to town meeting. I think that would be advisable. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks, and I support what you're doing here.
Thank you very much.
So the center,
Alan, go ahead.
so the center is owned by a legal entity of Grossman Development Corporation. We know who the owners are. We know the principals and the managing partners. We also know that they have investors involved in the project as well that they answer to. And all of that was part and parcel of the negotiation process. So there's no confusion about who the center is and who we're buying this from.
And be part of the purchase and sale has to be signed with the legal entities that are the owners.
Yeah, hi. I'm Betty Kristen, 16 Piccadilly Way. And I have a question about the square footage on the first floor. Earlier in the slides, you mentioned that the first floor is approximately 31,000 square feet. And you kind of alluded that that would be for the seniors, and then upstairs, which is also about 32,000, would kind of be for the youth and the rest of the community. Then, throughout the evening, I've heard now the conversations leaning toward that the entire first floor would not be for the seniors. I think many senior citizens who learned about this thought that they were going to go from a 10,000 square foot building to a 31,000 square foot facility. And everybody was saying, yeah, that sounds great. I don't know if your intention was that the entire 31,000 square foot first floor was going to be earmarked for the seniors, or do you envision that it's just going to be parceled, some of it for the seniors and some of it for the youth and general community? And if that is your intention, not to give all of it to the seniors, then I think the senior citizens in this town need to know approximately how much space they're going to be getting. Because if they're going from a 10,000 square foot building to an 11,000 square foot facility, it doesn't make any sense. It's not monetarily sensible. It doesn't make any sense at all. So I think that if you're going to divide up that first floor, I think you need to have some concrete numbers that we can rely on, and that these are your intentions, and they're not going to waver too much from what you indicate. Thank you.
So I think we want to make the point that the entire building is the community center. So the senior center would move to the first floor and have dedicated space, but it would also be doing programming on the second floor in the gym space or the pool space or the multi-purpose room space. What we heard through the senior needs assessment is that seniors in the community are interested or willing to have this multi-generational center as long as there's designated space for seniors when the senior center is open. And so I think what we're trying to say is that through the community engagement process, if we have a music room or a game room, I'm trying to think of the other things, the community's, the commercial kitchen and maybe the dining area, that's all going to be designated during the senior center hours for senior center space, but there will be additional space that is going to be available to the community, like the senior center currently is now. The senior center is currently available to the community outside of senior center hours. So I think the idea that we would be using the whole building for senior center programming, and then understanding that depending on what is down there, some of that would be designated for senior centers during those hours, depending on what the programming was during that day. And there would be other opportunity. So it just depends on what the scale of that concept is.
Yeah, and I would just say that I think this board, my take on this board is we are very aware of the senior need in our community and the fact that the senior population is the largest growing population in the town. And currently the town's budget is a very, very small portion of that budget is 100% dedicated towards seniors. So in my mind, the percentage of that building, as we go through the charrette process, we're going to find that the needs of seniors are going to be, I think, highly valued in that process to make sure that there's sufficient use of that building to meet their needs.
Steve Hart, 22 Brewer Drive, Westborough. Please, Christy, forgive me if I missed it in the presentation, but there's been a lot of talk about the senior centre itself.
Can you just speak?
I'm so sorry.
Raise the microphone, just because other folks want to be able to hear you.
Pretty bad from
No,
from
that's
me.
okay.
Yeah, I just is that with regard to the senior centre, the building and the land itself, has during this course of these conversations any thought been given to what happens to that building and the land? And is it possible that the town would consider selling it at a price? And if so, have your advisors given you any thought on that as income that would be able to go towards the new building?
So
Can you just repeat the question? I'm not sure everyone heard.
okay. So the question is, what would we do with the senior center building
And how much will we get for it?
And how much will we get for it? So the senior center we don't have an identified need for that building. So we would likely dispose of the building, meaning that we would sell it. We do know that the Affordable Housing Trust is interested in that purchase. I believe it is assessed at this point for 1.8 million, I think.
I think it just went up. I think it's slightly above. I'd have to check. I think it's
Okay.
slightly above 2 million.
I think it is slightly too.
And so that money would have to, when we sold it, it would go into that sale of real estate account and could be used to pay debt service on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Now, however, we would have to complete the work on the community center in order to move the senior center into the community center before we could then dispose of the senior center. So it wouldn't happen until following this project. A good question. Yes, please come forward.
Hi, Abby Macucci, 16 Garfield Drive. I just am trying to understand a little bit better about the costs associated with this. On one of the slides, I think you had made a comment that in fiscal year 2025, it would cost the average single-family home, a single-family taxpayer, $180.84. I guess I'd like to understand who is an average single-family taxpayer, like what that assessment might be, or if you could give me an idea of how that would increase the tax rate, which, like for example, for fiscal year 23, if I understand correctly, it's $16.84 per thousand, right? So I guess I'm just trying to understand like what that would mean to, for example, my specific family. I mean, there's families that are going to be above that average, there's families that are going to be below, and I'd like to have a better understanding of how that would apply more specifically.
John, speak.
Yeah, there we go.
You knew we were going to call on you.
I got that sense. John Steinberg, your Chief Assessor. I'll come over here so I can look at you since you asked the question. The fiscal 24 average single-family house value is $711,000, plus or minus a little bit. That changes every year. As the market continues to go up by fiscal 25, I'd expect that to be higher. The tax rate is driven by two things. It's driven by the overall value of the town, including commercial, industrial, and personal property, and the spending. So that ratio of the decline in the tax rate, so the total value of the town went up substantially in fiscal 23, which caused the rate to drop substantially. However, taxes still went up, and that's a function of the spending as well. So if the spending all stayed the same and the values went up, the rate would go down proportionally. Okay, what's going to happen in fiscal 25 with the budget outside of this? I don't know. It's hard, that's determined at town meeting. As to the average single-family taxpayer, that runs a broad range. I mean, that's the demographics in town are broad. I mean, we've seen people who, at both ends of the spectrum, people that can afford it and not afford it. It's hard to estimate what will happen relative to the commercial industrial property that's been very flat of more recent years and is just starting to recover from COVID in ways. But there's no way to know what new construction is going to come in, what buildings are going to come in, what companies are going to come in. We've been very fortunate in the past years to have companies like Amazon invest in the community. We have some properties out there with some big projects planned, but those projects take time. But that increase in the commercial industrial base will help defray some of that from the residential. However, the residential market continues to be very strong. Okay, so it's a little hard to put in perspective of the entire picture. However, that portion, and I think that's what they're speaking to, the portion of that increase, estimated impact, is on top of whatever other spending increases might come. And again, the ratios relative to the total values, is sort of an unknown, at that point in time. Those sales that will be involved in the analysis haven't happened yet, so. I hope that answers the question in sort of a roundabout way.
But doesn't the industrial, don't they pay less than the homeowner?
Look,
Years ago, it used to be industrial paid more and homeowners paid less. Then it was switched around to give them breaks.
No, so there's no breaks for the commercial, industrial, and personal property. They pay the same tax rate. We have a single tax rate in this town, okay? And I'm getting there. So there are percentages of each type of property, and that's really just driven by the total value. So the total value of the town now is just over 70% residential value, and that's everything from apartment complexes to single-family homes to condominiums. That's just the total percentage of our total $5.7 billion. Well, I mean, all of the real, no, condos all pay taxes. No, condos, they all pay proportionally to their market value. So a house that's worth $450,000 pays the same taxes as a condo that's worth $450,000. And it goes up proportionally. It's all based upon value. Apartment buildings pay based upon the value of those apartment buildings, okay? Arrive Westborough, I think, is now valued at almost $120 million. And so they pay taxes based upon a $120 million valuation for those three buildings. So it's all similar to driven by what those values are. I think the value of the Amazon robotics building is now $56 million, maybe even a little more. And so they're paying a very large tax bill. And it's all at the same rate. That's the thing. And so if your value of your home goes down, the rate comparatively goes down. Hotels, for example, we had a closed hotel during COVID, right? That value of that hotel was less because the market value was less and their taxes were proportional because it was closed. I mean, right? All the people that work there.
Okay, one
too.
second. We want to
Yeah.
make, there's people who are trying to watch this on TV, so if you have questions or comments, please come forward so those folks watching can hear you. But while we have our assessor here, are there any other?
John, I might have an unfair question here, but just to the last question that came out. So, and absolutely everything you said, of course, is absolutely true. But if all things remained equal, so nothing else changed except for the purchase of this building and this $180 on the average single-family home, which is 11 at where we are today's tax rate. What's the impact on in
So if
cents or
everything
dollars.
else stayed the same, and we had the purchase of this building, no other additional spending, no other change in value, right? The average single family, $711,000, would have a tax impact for fiscal '25 of $180.84, and it would drive the tax rate up enough to cover this purchase, the debt associated with it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And is there a dollars and cents on the rate off the top of your head roughly that?
Well, for every $1 million that we spend, it's $129.
Right, so this is half,
Yeah.
this is
So it's like 2 cents on the tax rate,
2 cents.
give or take.
Yep.
Yes, this is just, this is looking at this in a box. What happens with any other budget? What happens with the assessor's budget between now and then? Well, I don't think the assessor's budget ever does that.
What are you telling us?
But, I mean, really true. I mean, those are all voted at town meeting. All the spending relative to all budgets are voted at town meeting. And so those decisions are made by the taxpayers relative to what other projects or what investments in town or any of that.
Thank you.
Yes, please come forward.
Bob Kristen, 16 Piccadilly Way. When I was looking at the slides, and they were done very quickly, and I was trying to read them, but they were going very fast. If I recall, I saw a date of October 10th for the signing of the purchase and agreement for $8.8 million. I guess my question is, the town meeting, the fall town meeting is going to be on October 16th, where we're going to have this as a warrant there. Why are we signing the purchase and sale agreement before the town meeting? Where the people going to that meeting will have a say whether they want to go forward with this project.
Yeah, good question. It's, the sale is contingent upon approval of a town meeting vote. So even though we sign it,
Right.
the sale has to be approved by the town meeting.
And then later on, there's going to be a due diligence on this purchase and sale. And after the due diligence is done and the numbers don't work out, we can then back out of this purchase and sale agreement that is signed by
Correct.
the town.
Yes.
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 Okay. That was my questions. Thank
Yes.
you.
So there are several contingencies within the purchase and sale agreement, and the approval of that vote, of that warrant article is just one of them. So it does give us the opportunity to not move forward. So similar to how you would purchase a home, you would arrive at a price and then you would do all of your inspections. So we've already initiated some of those inspections so that we can get the information as soon as possible.
And I would say that that's to the question that was raised earlier about the negotiation. That was, I'll say sort of, I don't want to say equally, but I think that as a negotiation strategy, it's not just about the price. It's about if you find something that you don't like, the ability to back out without repercussions. So.
Thank you. Please come forward, yes.
Indrek Butner, 17 Arch Street. Let me preface this by saying I'm generally in favor of this. But having sat through the debacle with the library 2 times and having a sense that there is a little bit of pushback that is going to be coming here, my question is, have you had an independent appraiser appraise this property and give you an independent appraisal?
Yes.
And if you have, what was the number?
It's in the FAQ, right?
It is in the FAQ. It's $6,040,000.
Okay. I did not expect it to be this price.
So-
Okay.
So
I think that's going to be an issue at the town meeting.
if I can add, the owner of the property also did appraisal work, and his appraiser for his type of use came back much higher,
Yeah.
is what we were told.
course.
So, as it would, as
Yeah.
is
I'm just
the case.
prepping you. I'm in favor of this,
No.
but I think that's going to be an issue.
Yep. No, fair
And you should
point.
be
Yep,
ready
fair point.
for it.
Absolutely fair point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Janet Hart from 22 Brewer Drive. If I was attending the town meeting, I think I might want to know a little bit more about the cost for shop fitting the unit and how that cost would be proportioned amongst taxpayers. And I know we don't have a figure yet, but would it be possible to say, if it costs $2,000 to outfit it, the cost of taxpayers in that year may be X, if it costs $5,000, it may be Y, and if it costs, et cetera.
Is-
Sorry. I'm sorry.
And if I missed it already in the presentation,
It's-
forgive me.
It was mentioned in the presentation that the town has funds in sale of real estate account, as well as funds from the ZBA settlement with Pulte that can be used to cover the cost of upfitting. So
Okay.
once it's decided, if the scope of the upfitting is within the available funds, there's no impact on the taxpayer to do the fit up of the building.
Okay, great.
And to add on to that, every one of those three items there would all require, my understanding is a town meeting vote to sell real estate,
No.
to transfer money for Pulte, as well as the Community Preservation Act actually has to, I think the use of that money
Yep.
has to go to town meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also actually to the Community Preservation Committee first.
Yeah.
So, but to the question, I think what I heard was a broader question, which is, you know, if we don't know how the center will be built out, but if there was a fit-out cost, a relative order of magnitude of, if we were to spend $1 million, this would be the
Mhm.
impact. So
I
that's
think
what
the
I heard
public
you
would like
asking.
probably to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then can I ask one more question? At the prospective new unit, new facility, 2.6 acres of parking, do we know how many spaces that yields? I just wonder if, again, it might be raised in the meeting. Is this allowing us more or less parking space than the senior center? I believe I already know, but others might want to know.
So part of the purchase is a reciprocal agreement that's tied with the common area maintenance. So, well, a certain number of spaces come with the building. People coming to the community center can use any of the parking spaces in Bay State Common,
Excellent.
and vice versa. And that reciprocal agreement and common area maintenance, the center will take care of maintenance of the sidewalks, outside lighting, landscaping, snow
Mhm.
plowing.
Just to be clear,
services.
not the property, the Grossman Development, who
Right.
owns the,
Center,
okay, well,
Right.
the center.
right.
I just
The
don't want
owner of
people-
the center.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank
The
you very
owner's
much.
not.
For that.
Owner of
Right,
Bay
the
State
owner of the
Commons,
house,
yeah,
yes.
not this,
That's
yeah,
what
I
it
just want to be,
Yes. Thank you.
but we can get the number of spaces that go with that, with the property.
Tom Caprioli, 9 Crown Ridge Road. I'm not asking another question. I'd just like to clarify the answer to this woman's question. The town has some money already that they can spend on renovating this property. That's your money already. It's like saying, are you going to take money from your bank account, or are you going to take money from this week's paycheck or this month's paycheck? It's the same money. It's your money. See, they're talking about spending money that already exists versus spending money they're not going to ask you for. But if you spend money that already exists, then when you need more money in the future, you don't have the money that already exists, so they got to ask you for the money at that time in the future. It's your money that they're spending, regardless of what pocket it's in. Thank you.
Right, but just as clarification for everyone, the money that's shown here on the slide as an example is money that already exists, but in order to spend it, it requires a vote at town meeting, whether it's $1 or 1.872953. And there is a difference because this is money that the town already has in those respective accounts. It is not money that would raise your taxes, whereas other monies could potentially raise taxes, depending upon how they were being funded. Sorry,
And-
Chris.
Well, sorry. I just wanted to say that these accounts can't be used for anything. So the sale of real estate can only be used for things for which to borrow. Pulte payments is money that can only be used for affordable housing or to support seniors. And then there's several rules around the use of Community Preservation Act funds. So we've identified these as possible funding sources because they're permitted for these uses.
Yeah, and also just keep in mind the Pulte payments is on this list, this is something that is a fund that is driven directly out of Pulte paying the town. It's not a taxpayer's dollars. in that fund. That's coming from Pulte. And then the sales of real estate, as we just heard, we got a $1.8 million figure on the screen, but we think that it's actually higher than that for the sale of the existing senior center. The value of that property has gone up significantly since it was built in 1989 using taxpayers' money. So yes, these are all funds that are available to the town, but this is how we offset the cost of the taxpayer. For me, this is the compelling story of why I'm going to vote for it, is because we're using our funds the right way they're intended to be used, and it offsets that cost to the taxpayer.
You can use it for affordable housing. There's plenty of need for affordable housing. If you don't believe me, ask Ellen. And the fact of the matter is, all spending is approved by town meeting, not telling us anything that, well, you got to approve this spending and you got to approve that spending. You got to approve it all. It's like, you signed a check for regardless of whether it comes out of your bank account for spending, regardless of whether it comes out of your bank account or it comes out of your current paycheck. There is other needs in this town at the moment, and there will be other needs in the future. This money is not going to dry up and blow away if we don't spend it on this project. I'm not saying it's a good project or bad project. I'm just identifying the financial implications. I'm about money. I'm not about people's wish lists. Thank you.
I just had one thing there from Mr. Caprielli, said your money. Just to note, it's our money too. Yes, we're your elected representatives, but we're taxpayers just like you. You elect us, but it's our money. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mic's open.
Good evening, Chris Allen, 8 Edward Dunn Way. One of the things I do not see listed as a use is a meeting room. And perhaps you know that Senior Center meeting room is used by many different organizations once the Senior Center is closed for the day. There are other places in town that are not available anymore because they have other uses that were not true 30 or 40 years ago, or even 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. For instance, the library closes at 8 rather than 9, and that changes a lot of programs that could be there. So I just hope that you've considered meeting rooms and adding meeting rooms for the general public and organizations in this major facility, which I think is a wonderful benefit for the town, and I think it's great that you're taking advantage of this opportunity, but curious about meeting rooms available.
I think it's a good point that it's not listed here. It's certainly intended that rooms would be used for community meeting, rooms that would be developed in the first level, but also there are actually 2 existing meeting rooms on the 2nd floor that would be available. So definitely point well taken, and we definitely are aware of the need for a meeting space.
We'll add it to the slide.
We'll add it to the slide. It is our intention, so thanks for pointing out us not having it on there.
Good evening. Mike Karp, 11 Peters Farm Way, formerly of Old Stonebridge. My memory isn't quite as good as it once was. Am I right in remembering that in the FAQ that you published, the price per square foot would be in the neighborhood of $139 per square foot? And that, am I also right that the price for a comparable structure in Grafton is something in the neighborhood of $800?
Yeah, Upton, yes.
Can you help us by describing what the impact of the $800 per square foot would be to our taxes?
Good question. Yeah.
Come on, guys, I lobbed you a
Some
softball.
math here. I know you're helping us out. So, is that 140? It's at least 5 times, right? At least 5.
Well, it's about 19%.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the
6 times more than what the.
Right. It would be 5.76 times more.
Okay.
So,
I mean, it's hard because it would be a borrow.
Right.
So it would be a 20-year schedule, so I can't do that right now, but it certainly is significant, the difference.
Well, I think it might be useful going forward to keep that in mind.
Sure.
And perhaps even present it.
Appreciate it.
In the appropriate session. Thank you.
And Christie, correct me if I'm wrong, that $800 number was just the building, not the purchase of the property as well. Is that, or is that the entire?
So the 800 would be a new build.
No, fully.
Including the purchase of the property?
No.
No.
No, okay,
No.
so that,
No.
all right. So
That'd be if it went on existing town-owned property.
right, so if we were to look for another piece of property in town, center of town, this size, what would that cost on top of that $800 per square foot? That's why the opportunity is so great here, is that we can have it located center of town and on a piece of property that already exists, it's already built for it, it's gonna drive a ton of traffic into our business community, so, it's great.
No, thank you, and we'll be ready for that softball again at town meeting. Okay. Any other questions? Give folks a couple minutes. I don't know.
While we're waiting there, do you want to hit on the next, we have another meeting scheduled daytime if folks are listening and want to
Yep.
have other questions, or if any folks in the audience want to attend.
Yes, and it's Thursday, 1:30 PM at the Senior Center.
So it would be a similar presentation to this. Chrissy will show the video, and then we'll have Q&A.
I guess I would just add that this is also being discussed amongst many boards. So the Master Plan Implementation Committee has taken this up. The Economic Development Committee this morning took this up. Recreation Commission, all three of those committees voted in support of these articles. I know the Planning Board is taking it up on their agenda this evening. So just sort of Economic Development did this morning, yep, so.
We'll go through Finance Committee.
And then we're going to the Finance Committee on Thursday, if folks want to tune into that meeting.
We have no further questions.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you all for
Thank you
coming
very
this
much.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, much appreciated.